Danny Boyle is one of my favorite directors. Not so much because I love every film he does, but because he's extremely diverse. His films range from dramas to horror to science fiction. He's even directed his own version of a children's film. Now, for this interview, I didn't want to ask him too many questions about his latest project, Slumdog Millionaire, which is what he was out promoting. It was early, and he had already done about, 3 interviews right before me. So I wanted to avoid having him answer the same questions he had possibly been repeating all morning. I don't want to completely overlook the film either, as it is very deserving of much praise. It tells the story of Jamal Malik, a boy who grows up as an orphan in the slums of India, and now at the age of 18, finds himself on India's version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. He's on a winning streak, but is suddenly arrested on the accusations of cheating. I mean, come on, they're like, surely a dumbass from the slums cannot know the answer to all these questions. What no one realizes, though, is that every question somehow reflects back to a pivotal moment in Jamal's childhood. Here's a clip where Jamal, who's becoming more confident as he progresses on the show, throws a joke back at the condescending host.
I'll go for D, London.
Computer G, D, lock kiya jaye. Jamal Malik, you're absolutely right!
It's getting hot in here.
Are you nervous?
What? Am I nervous? It's you who's in the hot seat, my friend.
As I said, it's a very good film, and it further reminded me why Danny Boyle is indeed one of the directors I truly respect and admire. All right, enough of my sappiness. Here's the interview. So I'm sitting here with director Danny Boyle.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
I'm sorry if I look. I'm just gonna be honest with you, man. I'm hungover right now.
Did you have a good night?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and a good morning too. I just didn't sleep at all. So, I usually go to bed around this time. So, but so if I ask something crazy or anything, just feel free to kick me or slap the shit out of me or whatever you want to do. But let me just say it's a real pleasure to talk to you,
okay.
And I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
It's a pleasure for me too.
I don't want you to take this the wrong way or anything, but you are actually one of my favorite directors.
Right, okay, cool.
And I know people tell you that a lot. I know it's a kiss-ass thing to say, but I know you hear that all the time. Hey, you're my favorite director. But the reason why I think you're my favorite director is because, and just to show you that I'm not giving you just some lame compliment, I love most of your movies. There's probably like maybe 2 that I'm not crazy about, but as a it's hard to say that because it seems like the reason why I'm saying that is not to like try to act like I'm gonna tell Danny Boyle off or something like that. No, the reason why I'm saying that is because as a collective, though, your whole body of work, I think, is truly amazing.
It's weird, it's funny because one of the reasons I'm here is that they're giving me this award here in Austin and at the film festival, and it's really weird because 1 minute you're just kind of working, and then suddenly everybody starts talking about your body of work, like you just said. Then it's really weird. But I can never quite. You can't quite define when you stop the first bit, which is you're just making film, and then suddenly you've got a body of work that people say, looking back on your body of work, it's really weird. And what is that dividing line between those two things? Because it's really I never feel like there's a body of work. You just feel like you make films, and you know what it's like. You always feel younger than you actually are. You think, because in your mind you're always like immature. You're at least 15 years immaturer than you actually are in your mind. And then suddenly realize, oh yeah, I suppose there are about 7 or 8 films out there now. So some of which have done okay. So yeah. No, I mean, I figured at any point if you make more than 2 movies and you have a body of work, and I know again that's probably a cliche thing to say, but I mean, you made several movies throughout your career. Yeah, the thing is, the ideal thing is not to. I mean, obviously, you get so obsessed with them when you're making them. You tend to, once they're made, you tend to not forget them, but you put them aside a bit, really, because it's been unhealthy, the amount of time you've spent on them, dedicated to them. So it's good then to actually just abandon them for a while. And then you come back to them, because like last night, after we'd screened Slumdog Millionaire, they did a late night screening of Shallow Grave, which I haven't seen for years.
When's the last time you saw that movie?
It's a long time. And I was like, I said to the Fox guys, because I introduced it, and then I said, I've got to go, I'm so tired, because I'm a bit jet lagged. And then I just watched it to see how the print was at the beginning. And it was like, and I stayed for about 25 minutes watching it. And I was like, wow, I couldn't remember how fast it was. It was so quick, Which probably means I've slowed down. But anyway, I left eventually because I thought I'll fall asleep, which wouldn't be very good, falling asleep during my own film.
Yeah, you're the one back there snoring. It's like, shut the fuck. Oh, that's Danny Boyle back there. The reason why I'm bringing up all of your movies is because the thing I admire most about certain directors is that the ones that can take on different topics, genres, whatever you want to call it, the ones who just have a lot of diversity in their work and can do it to some level of success are the directors that I admire the most. And that is why when somebody says, who is a director like that, you're one of the first people to come to mind.
Oh, cool. Well, the thing is, one of the reasons that you change, because people say it's like genre hopping, but actually one of the reasons that you change is that when you have spent this, as I said, almost unhealthy amount of time working on a particular idea or a story, like a space story or whatever, it's wonderful to change, because it does you so much good. Because actually what it does to you, it's kind of humbling, really. It puts you back to square one, because you're no longer an expert. Like this film is set in India. I knew nothing about India. You're not an expert. You turn up there and you've got to learn, from the beginning. And I think that's a wonderful place for a director to be, is right back at the beginning every time. Because then you're not pouncing around going, I've made this film, I've done this, I know how to do this. And you're not relying on tricks that you've learnt, or you actually have a blank piece of paper. Obviously you've got a great script, but you actually are back at square one about how to tell it. And being, in a way, in the condition of not knowing what you're doing is kind of very healthy, ironically, for a director. Directors are meant to know what they're doing, but actually I think that's quite dangerous sometimes. It's really healthy to not know what you're doing,
So I guess what you're saying is you just want to keep an element of surprise to your work. You want
and to yourself, yeah. And it surprises yourself as well, because you do have problems. You think, I don't know how to do this, and it means you've got to do some research. You've got to look at other great films that have worked in this area. You've got to kind of, and you've got to kind of try and come up with something fresh and different. And the way to be fresh is not to rely on any other previous success you've had, because it'll go stale very quickly.
Yeah.
Especially audiences these days, which go, yeah, I like the first one, but the second one. It's the same. They run out of patience very, very quickly with you, I think.
Well, no, I understand.
Rightly so.
And I understand what you're saying. I mean, when you say you want to jump into something, I don't know if even what you're saying is you don't know what you're doing. Is just as much as just trying different things. I mean, let's think of what you've done. Shallow Grave, Train Spotting, 28 Days Later, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, man. And then you have Millions, which is like your version of a children's film, and now you have Slumdog Millionaire. I mean, all these have they're a different movie, a different genre, whatever you want to call it altogether. But somehow they still have a distinct direction that is yours.
I guess so. I guess that's right, because you're the head of the church, really, as a director. That's the job. So it's bound to, if you've done your job well, it's bound to bear the marks of what you've done, really. You're leading everybody somewhere, But it's really interesting. Like 28 Days Later, when we started that film, I didn't really know very much about zombie movies, which was really healthy, because the guy who wrote it was a geek, a complete zombie movie fan. He knew everything there was to know about zombie movies. I mean, he could answer any question, the most minute, kind of ridiculous, trivial question he could answer about zombie movies. And I knew nothing, really, in comparison. I had respect for George Romero and, a few basic things in place like anybody would do. But I was not a fan in that way. And that was a very healthy place to start it with, because I could make changes to the genre. I could contemplate, ideas that maybe someone who was too dedicated, knew too much about it, wouldn't be prepared to do, because it was too much like hallowed ground, too sacred in a way. So I think there's lots of healthy things come out of the fact of throwing yourself into something that you don't really know the rules of, and you have to pick them up as you're going along, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, so is that what turned you on to a project like that? I mean, did you just say, I want to direct a zombie movie? I don't know anything about zombies, but I'm going to direct this anyway.
Yeah, because it wasn't the genre, it was the story. I just thought, I read it, and I thought, oh, what a great story. This idea of a guy waking up in London and it's abandoned, everybody's gone. I thought, that's pretty amazing. I mean, it's stolen, obviously, from Day of the Triffids and I Am Legend, but it's actually still a great idea. And so that was the starting point, and I thought, yeah, I'd do that. Again, it's a bit like this movie. The time to commit to a film when you're reading it is after about 10 pages, weirdly enough. It's not to wait until you get to the end. It's actually after about 10, 20 pages, you should know by then, are you going to do this movie or not?
Yeah.
Because then you're just on board. You're not waiting for the end when you're kind of objectively assessing it. You're kind of on board. You're part of the journey already, that the film's going to make. And I love doing that as well. And I certainly did it on this film, Slumdog, and I remember doing it on 28 Days Later. Which is after I read that opening, I thought, I'm definitely going to do this.
No, that's great, man. I know we got to wrap this up, but I want to something I want to ask you. What's that? Oh, okay. No, I thought you were like, get the hell out of here. Two movies that come to mind that I guess you could say were your Hollywood movies, The Beach and A Life Less Ordinary.
Yeah.
What was your heart in those movies, or were you? Well, you hear. And I'm not saying anything about the movies themselves. It seems like you've kind of gone away from that with your movies after that, as far as working mainstream that way.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Did you have a bad experience with Hollywood? Did you just want to work more independent after that? Do you want to go back into it?
It's not. They're particularly The Beach was a huge budget film, really, more money than I'd ever worked with. I mean, more money than it was. Cost so much money, that film. It was $50 million, which is enough money to buy the town I grew up in and move it like 100 miles west or 100 miles east. You could literally. I mean, it was just money beyond imagination in terms of where I come from, and I couldn't handle that kind of money, really. I feel too much responsibility about wasting money and stuff like that. And it sort of crippled me a bit, really. And it wasn't the system's fault, because in fact, Leo, who's in the film, is a big director's actor. Is that he'll do anything to protect the director, because he's powerful with the studios. They're really scared of him because he's so kind of so successful in terms of audiences and stuff like that. So he'll protect you from the studio. There's no problem. So I didn't have any problems with the studios like that. But I realised when I finished it that it wasn't the way to get the best work out of me. What I'm much better at doing, I realised, and subsequent to those two movies, I've sort of worked like this, is I take less money and I actually then work kind of off the radar a bit. Now, there are big advantages to working off the radar, i.e. nobody's watching you. You can do what you want. You and you're free, really, in a way. Obviously, the disadvantages are you've sometimes got to make the money stretch, but that can be a big advantage because you can get inventive rather than just rely on technology or previous ways of doing things. But the bigger problem you've got is that when the film's finished, you've got to get it back on the radar. Yeah. And you're not got a movie star who's going to be able to do that for you now. So you've got to be able to, the quality of the film itself has got to be really, really high to make it pop. And you're going to rely on things like film festivals. Yeah. And like with Slumdog, we had a big buzz created on us from Telluride in Toronto, and now we're at Austin. And these festivals help you get the film on the radar, And then it's up to people whether they want to watch it or not, so...
Well, I think it's worth working that way and having to push your movie in circumstances like film festivals, working with people who probably aren't actors. Because it seemed like when you're in your Hollywood movies, that's where you were held back the most.
Well, it was kind of like, I mean, I love Hollywood films. I love watching big movies, and I guess I'm just probably not the best guy to make them. I mean, I really admire the guys who can make them, who can do those kind of movies. But I sort of realised I'm probably not the guy to make them. Because a lot of politics comes with it as well, in terms of the studio and dealing with all that kind of stuff, And I'm not really. I'd much prefer to just get a bunch of people together, small bunch of people together, and just get on with it. And we're all kind of like, then we're all dedicated to one thing, which is let's make something interesting out of this story and this amount of money that we've got. Let's make it go a long way if we can.
Well, I know we need to wrap it up, but we hardly talked about it. But I just want to say, love the movie Slumdog Millionaire. Recommending it to everyone. I think it's an amazing film.
Thanks very much.
And how much does? And before we leave, how does it feel hearing people say like, this is going to be up for some big awards. I mean, you must be like, I'm the shit right now, man. You
Well,
damn right, I'm Dan Boyle.
No, it's funny, like 6 weeks ago we were dead and buried because we didn't have North American distribution and anything. So it's easy to keep your feet on the ground with this one. Because just a few weeks ago it was like we were nowhere. And it's like life can deal you some pretty cruel blows as well. So it's pretty easy to keep your feet on the ground. I'm also, like, although we've had a lovely time so far at festivals, you do always know that the film's got to earn its way with the public, you know, who have not decided yet whether they're going to come and watch it, you know. We know when that happens is when it opens. And that's the moment that you wait for, and you've got to wait for that and not get carried away with anything, really, you know.
Well, it's been a tremendous pleasure
Thanks, Corey.
talking to you. Thank
Nice
you
to
so
talk to you
much
too.
for taking the time. I
a
really
pleasure.
appreciate that.
Thanks very much.